Hey guys, welcome to True Crimes and Weird Times. I'm Kim.
I'm Ashley.
And this week, I'm going to be telling you about a little known case of a 7-year-old girl who went missing from her bed in March of 1995.
And I'm going to be telling you about a man who is known for his extremely unusual eating habits in the 18th century. Tarrare.
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 On March 31st, 1995, at about 8:30 p.m., Gail Doll put her 4 kids to bed in their home in Everett, Washington, before leaving to see a movie with a friend. One of the kids she put to bed that night was Roxanne Doll, and she was 7 years old. She and her younger sister shared the top bunk of some bunk beds, while her older sister had the bottom bunk. While Gail was at the movies, Roxanne's father was next door with their neighbors and a friend of his named Richard Clark, who was 26 years old. While his kids are home alone asleep, the youngest of which was 5.
Oh.
The father, Tim Effrig, was doing meth and getting drunk next door.
All right. Now, does Gail know this? Like, does she know he does drugs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So she had actually dropped the house keys off with Tim before leaving, so she definitely was aware of what was going on.
Oh, okay. So this was going on before she left?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
At least Tim, if not also Gail, were regular drug users.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't find anything. So like I said, this case is a very little known case. There's not a whole lot of articles and information out there about it.
Yeah.
So I took what I could. And like I said, I didn't find out for sure if Gail was a drug user as well.
Okay.
But Tim definitely was.
Okay.
So between 9:30 and 9:45, Tim finally heads home and his friend Richard Clark leaves in his van.
Okay.
When Tim gets home, he goes to the kitchen to cook some food, but proceeded to pass out on the couch in the middle of it.
Okay. Yeah. As you do.
When Gail returned home shortly after midnight, the house was full of smoke because the food Tim had started was still on the stove burning.
Mm-hmm.
So she woke up Tim, she took care of the burnt food, and she went to check on her daughters. Now, she briefly turns the lights on to check on the girls, like flips it on and off real quick so she can see them without waking them up. And she thinks that she sees all 3 girls asleep in their bunks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she later thinks back on this and says, you know, I thought I saw 3 girls, but they could have just had some toys, like stuffed animals in there too.
That kids do that.
And it seemed as if she saw all 3 girls, but really no.
Yeah.
So then around 1 a.m., Richard Clark comes back to their house and chats a while with Tim about a camping trip they were planning for that day before they both head back to the neighbor's house, and they did drugs and partied for the rest of the night.
Okay.
About 6:30 a.m., the two pack up for their camping trip and they head out, without sleeping and stuff.
Wow, yeah, I was going to say.
Meth.
Oh, yeah.
About 7:30 a.m., Gail's son Nicholas wakes her up to tell her that he can't find Roxanne.
Oh.
So Gail gets up, she searches the house, no Roxanne. She calls all her nearby friends and family to see if maybe she went to someone's house, just got up and went over there, no Roxanne.
Oh.
Her next thought is, okay, well maybe she went camping with her dad and she just didn't, nobody woke me up to tell me.
Yeah.
But she's later informed by her sister-in-law, who had actually seen Tim and Richard that morning, that Roxanne hadn't been with them when she saw them.
Yeah.
So she immediately calls the police and reports her 7-year-old daughter missing. She then headed to the campsite to tell Tim because, they don't have cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, there were cell phones around in 95, I think.
But it wasn't like...
Not many people had them. Once she gets to the campsite and she lets Tim know, what's going on, that Roxanne is missing, Richard leaves in his van and Tim goes back home with Gail. Later that afternoon, about 4:30 p.m., Richard goes with his aunt to the Everett police station to either show them or give them some copies of a missing person flyers they had made up to distribute.
Okay.
And the officer he spoke with there told him, look, just go to Roxanne's house, talk with those police. They're the ones working the case. So just take them over there. So when he drives towards their house, he gets close and he can see that there is a lot of police officers here. So he just keeps on driving.
Huh.
He told his aunt that it was because he had been driving without a license and he didn't want to get in trouble.
Uh-huh.
Now, Gail immediately suspected Richard.
I immediately suspected Richard.
She had always gotten a bad feeling about him. She didn't really like him. And the police were right there with her.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, who just avoids the police?
Right? I mean, meth users probably.
Yeah,
But
that's very true.
so the very next day, April 2nd, the officers pick up Richard and they interview him. And they say, why didn't you come to the house? We know that you were told to come to the house, so why didn't you show up? He says, oh, well, I was low on gas. I didn't think I would make it there.
So I keep driving.
He makes it sound like he never even went.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
He didn't have enough gas, so he didn't even try. And they were like, well, why didn't you page us and let us know? He's like, oh, I didn't want to bother anybody.
During a missing child. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He then consented to have his van searched by the police. Now, not like an in-depth forensic search, but just kind of a look through.
Yeah.
And officers said that his van smelled like death.
Oh, no.
On April 3rd, the following day, Richard's van was impounded, and they got a search warrant to search it for trace evidence. Mm-hmm. Richard was also placed on 24-hour surveillance by Everett Police and the FBI.
Oh. So they're not playing.
No. Now, they find that Richard's van is absolutely covered in blood.
What?
So Richard calls his stepbrother and asks him to lie to the police and say that the blood is from a deer they had killed.
Uh-huh.
But his stepbrother's like, no way, man. I am not doing that.
Wouldn't they have found out whether it was a deer? They're going to check it either way.
I don't think he's the brightest guy. Or maybe he didn't think they would test it if he said it was from a deer. I don't know.
Okay.
On April 7th, this is 1 week now since the disappearance, Richard Clark is arrested for the murder of Roxanne Doll. The very next day, on April 8th, 2 young girls were out picking blackberries when they stumble across the body of Roxanne.
Oh, no.
She had been dumped on a hillside and covered in grass clippings and other debris. And she had been raped and stabbed repeatedly in the neck 7 times.
No.
Her autopsy report said that her injuries from the rape alone would have been enough for her to bleed out.
Oh, my God.
But the cause of death was the 7 stab wounds to her neck, one of which severed her left jugular vein.
Oh, that poor girl.
The stab wounds appeared to have been done with a pocket knife, and she also had some knife wounds on her hands, although they couldn't tell if they were defensive or if they were intentionally inflicted.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
That very same day that they found her body, Richard called his stepmother from jail, because he was arrested the day before they found her body. He called his stepmother from jail, and he repeated his request, like, hey, can you get my stepbrother to lie about it being deer blood in the van?
Mm-hmm.
And I assume she was like, no, I cannot do that. But during this phone call, she asked Richard whether he had kidnapped Roxanne, if he had raped her, and if he had killed her. And Richard says he doesn't know because he was so high. He had done so many drugs and drank so much alcohol that he doesn't remember.
This is a PG-13 show.
He also told her not to grieve if he received the death penalty.
Ugh.
So here's what actually happened the night that Roxanne disappeared. Around 11:30 p.m., after Tim had passed out, Richard returned to the home and snuck in through the girl's bedroom window. He then lured Roxanne to his van by telling her he had a puppy for her to play with.
No.
He then rapes and murders her in his van, after which he dumps her body on the hillside. Around 12 a.m., and I don't have exact times, but the time frame, I mean, I started to give you the whole time frame of his entire night, but honestly, the time frame that he had to commit this crime was very small. We're talking like 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Around 12 a.m., he showed up at his aunt's house, which is actually where he was living at the time.
Oh, okay.
And he had blood all over his shirt. He took a shower, and he asked his aunt to wash his shirt for him.
Uh-huh.
And then he left again at 12:45 a.m.
And she went, "Sure, Richard."
Yep, she did wash it for him. And if you remember, this is when he goes back to Tim's house and spends the rest of the night getting drunk and high with the father of the child he had just raped and murdered.
And Tim is too hot to even bother to know.
Oh, yeah. Tim had no clue his child was missing.
Oh, my. Yeah. You're right. I did get very infuriated.
Yep. Police were able to match DNA from the blood in Richard's van and the blood on his shirt despite it being washed to Roxanne. They also matched his DNA to the semen found in her body, and they found Richard's fingerprint on the window of Roxanne's bedroom.
Stupid.
2 years after the rape and murder, Richard Clark was found guilty of all charges and was given a death sentence. But upon sentencing, he actually blames Roxanne's parents, saying that they weren't watching her carefully, they weren't taking care of her properly, and that they were the murderers.
Due to negligence? Because, I didn't think I'd get more mad, but here I am.
Yep. In fact, Tim actually had to leave the courtroom when he says this because he wanted to attack Richard when he said that. Me
too.
He told reporters that he had a 4-inch pocket knife in his pocket because apparently it's not considered a weapon. And even if they had picked it up on the scan when he went in, they would have let him keep it.
Yeah.
So he probably did have a knife on him.
Yeah.
And he said all he wanted to do was attack him. He's like, I could have gotten there before anybody could stop me.
Yeah.
He said, but I didn't want to put my family through another trial.
Yeah.
So instead, he ran out of the room so he'd just get far away from him. Although, how wrong is Richard? I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Richard did it.
He's very wrong. But yes, there should have been someone there with those kids, sober.
Maybe not inviting a bunch of meth heads to your house.
Exactly.
In and out all the time.
I mean, I don't want to say that because it's like saying, a woman who's raped. Well, you shouldn't have put yourself in that position. But, you're the adult here.
You still have to protect your children. You have to watch them. You have to make sure they're not alone. You have to know who's around them. And you can't always know who's around them. But Gail said she had a bad feeling about this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think any of the responsibility is on the parents for sure. But at the same time, they could have done more.
Yeah. They could have been there.
They could have not been on drugs for one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not the end of this story, though.
So, it never is, Kim.
I know. In 2006, Richard was given a deal to change the death penalty to life in prison after agreeing to take full responsibility for the murder. See, he had been filing appeal after appeal after appeal, and he was fighting, was the search warrant on his van valid? Was this valid? Just fighting it, trying to get out of the death penalty. So finally they offer him this deal like, hey, if you will take full responsibility for these murders, we will change it to life in prison. And according to the Herald-Net, Richard said in court, quote, no other person is responsible in any way, shape, or form for Roxanne's murder. No one had anything else to do with these crimes. No one could have prevented me from doing what I did. No one failed to protect Roxanne.
Yeah, but he's just saying that to
not die.
To not die. Which it doesn't matter. He's going to die in prison anyway.
But the family actually agreed to this deal primarily because the other two girls who had been in the room that night carried a lot of guilt with them. because, they felt like they could have done something to stop it, despite being the fact that they were only 5 and 12 at the
I was
time.
going to say they're just babies too.
And I don't know if they woke up when Richard came into the room.
That's what I was getting ready to ask, but
I couldn't
it's possible
find information about it. Like I said, it's so little reporting on this case. I mean, it was solved so quickly. Less than a week after she was taken, they had arrested him. So it just didn't get a lot of attention. But like I said, the girls carried a lot of guilt. They felt responsible, that they could have done something. So Tim and Gail wanted them to have like definitive proof that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Like, they wanted Richard to say in his own words, I did this, no one else did it, to just give their kids some peace of mind.
Yeah.
After this statement, Richard waived all rights to appeal and is now serving life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Oh, I'm so mad.
Oh, yeah. The whole case is just infuriating.
Yeah.
And it's, like we said, it's so hard not to be angry with the parents, but really, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Children are kidnapped and murdered from really great families who were vigilant and watching them all the time.
Even if they were the best parents, it happens.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. I mean, it's just...
It's hard not to want to get mad at them, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that, yeah.
And it's hard not to say, like, why were you next door doing drugs instead of watching your children? Like...
Look, I mean...
You can't say that's the cause, but you want to. You want to say that's the cause.
Well, and drugs are... I mean, yeah, he was out partying and doing drugs, but, like, drugs are its own thing. Like, that's its own demon.
Yeah, you don't make good decisions.
Yeah.
And it's just, the whole thing is just really sad. And this poor 7-year-old girl who I just cannot imagine what she went through.
I know. I try not to think about that part.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to do kids' cases.
Yeah.
So I don't do them often. But just because this one was so underreported and not a lot of people knew about it, I just wanted to share Roxanne's story.
Yeah. It is a good one.
Just really depressing.
Thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.
Have you ever had something spooky happen?
Childlike, right? Like, turning on the faucet, turning it off, moving the books around. Something you can't explain.
Even if they don't see the apparition, you could probably smell the scent. So, like, she's nearby.
Well, I'm Liana.
And I'm Mikayla.
And sometimes you just have to ask yourself. Well, then if it's getting what it wants, like, why is there no peace?
What If It's Haunted? A paranormal podcast.
New episodes every other Friday, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
So, it's a lot in the mood a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about something a little less depressing for a minute.
Let's talk about, get ready for my southern drawl, guys, Tarrare.
Tarrare.
If you haven't heard of him, this is gonna be a wild run.
It's a doozy.
It is a doozy.
I was just telling Ashley before we started recording that I saw some TV show about this guy. I don't even remember what it was. A long time ago. And I started asking her questions, and then we remembered that we're about to do a whole story on it. She could just tell me right now.
Yeah, we just decided to hit record, So Tarrare was born near Lyon, France, around 1772. So records weren't what they are now. So we're not sure of his exact date of birth, or even if Tarrare was even his real name or just a nickname. We don't even have any surviving paintings or images of him. If you go search for him, any pictures you see is like of other stories like this, of other people. But growing up, he already had a huge appetite. Now think, this is 1772. This is in France. This is Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. There's not a lot of food to go around already.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an enormous appetite. And by his teens, he could eat, quote, a quarter of a bullock, which is a cow, weighing as much as himself in a single day.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. And, I mean, his parents couldn't feed him anymore. They literally could not afford to feed him. So, by his teens, they forced him to leave his home. So now he's homeless and hungry.
Imagine your kid eating so much food that you have to kick him out of the house.
Look, sorry, bud, but we can't even eat.
Yeah.
Sorry. After this, he spent some time traveling with a group of thieves and prostitutes who kind of just roamed from town to town. They would beg for food. They would steal some food. They would steal things more than food. You know, not a good crowd to be hanging out with.
Some hooligans.
Some hooligans. He was eventually hired as like a warm-up act to a traveling peddler who was like, you know, selling snake oils and stuff. But he was used to gain a crowd by like eating weird things like corks, rocks, even live animals.
Oh my God.
He was known to swallow an entire basket of apples, like one right after another.
Swallow an apple?
A basket of apples.
How do you even... I mean, I guess some apples are pretty small, but still.
At the end, we will know exactly how he did that.
Okay.
Yeah. He was also particularly fond of snake meat while doing these performances.
Like raw or...
Probably.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I told Kim before while I was working on this, like, this is gross.
Now, I mean, I've heard of people... We're in the South. People eat possums here.
Possum sandwiches.
They also eat snakes. Like, that's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
People eat rattlesnake and different stuff. I don't know.
This guy was like...
Just chowing down like a noodle.
Just slurping it like spaghetti, guys.
Oh, God.
Oh, it gets better. Get ready. By the way, if you're eating anything and you have a weak stomach, you might want to set it down or wait a minute, you know.
Wait till we're done.
Yeah. By 1788, Tarrare, he realized, you know, I can make money doing this. This is easy. I already eat this much. People love to watch this. So he decided to move to Paris to work as a street performer. Overall, he was successful, and I guess as successful as a street performer could be in the 18th century. However, one time his act went wrong and he suffered from severe intestinal obstruction. And these days...
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah. These days, I mean, like, if you have an obstruction, you have to go to the hospital. They're going to keep you a couple of days. They're going to basically pump your stomach and possibly... Surgery. So, like, this is the 18th century, so...
I don't want to be cut open in the 18th century.
No, thank you. People from the crowd actually carried him to a nearby hospital, and he was treated with laxatives, and he made a full recovery.
Just poop it out.
Just poop it on out. Now, he offered to demonstrate his act to the surgeon there at the hospital by telling him, you know, I can eat your pocket watch. And the surgeon was like, he wasn't impressed, and he was like, no, if you eat my watch, I'm going to cut you open and I'm going to get it back.
Yep.
Don't do that.
I can see. Let me swallow your expensive item. No, not going to do that.
Please leave. You may already have your own image of what Tarrare looked like. And Kim, don't read my notes. What do you think he looked like?
I'm not looking. I'm going to say he's like big and tall and like just a big guy, like big quarterback football player, like giant person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me tell you this part real quick. My husband, as I was writing my notes, was watching Austin Powers, and Fat Bastard came on.
Yep.
And you know, he's like super sweaty and's got food all over him and stuff. As I'm writing this, so I'm going, but you know, so let me tell you about what he looks like. He was actually very slim.
No way.
And he was an average height. In fact, at 17, he only weighed 100 pounds.
How?
I'm going to say a high metabolism. I don't know.
That sounds like a disorder to me.
It does. Oh, it was said that he had unusually soft, light color hair.
Huh.
He had a very wide mouth.
Well, yeah.
Which was about 4 inches between his jaws when his mouth was fully extended. I would say that this is probably because of the way he ate and not genetics. Because you're going to find out, like, I picture a snake unhinging to eat.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing is like being able to really open your mouth.
Yeah.
Huge.
Like, I think this is probably due to stretching. His teeth were very stained. Again, probably from the stuff he ate. He probably didn't have a very good diet, obviously.
Or hygiene.
Or
maybe?
hygiene. Yeah, that wasn't a big thing around that time either. He had very thin, almost invisible lips. Again, probably from the stretching. When he hadn't eaten, his skin would hang loosely around his stomach. And it was said that he could wrap this fold of skin from his abdomen like completely around his waist.
What?
And this was for sure due to stretching. You know, like...
Yeah, like I'm picturing like a pregnant belly.
Yeah, well, or like someone who's lost a ton of weight very quickly. Like, which is what he's doing. He's extending his stomach and then it quickly distends. So...
That's insane.
Yeah. However, it said that when he had eaten or when he was full, which was not often, I guess, his abdomen would distend like, quote, a huge balloon. So, I mean, this is constantly going out, in, out, in, out, in.
Whoa.
So, yeah. The skin on his cheeks were also really wrinkled and hung loosely from the stretching. But when it was stretched out, he could hold 12 eggs or apples in his mouth at one time.
What?
Yeah. He's just shoveling this stuff in.
I'm for some reason picturing the Chubby Bunny game with the marshmallows.
Yeah. Except with eggs and apples.
Yeah. Don't try to say Chubby Bunny with eggs in your mouth.
Don't do that. On the regular, Tarrare's body was like super hot to the touch. He was always sweating. I wonder if it had to, like, I feel like this is some kind of biological thing anyway.
Oh, yeah. It's, to me, I'm not a doctor. I'm just guessing wildly here. To me, it sounds like his metabolism was so high
That's
that
what I
like,
pictured.
his body wouldn't store fat, and he just had to eat constantly to keep it up.
Yeah. Well, and hyperthyroidism, I think, can make you sweat too. But it also keeps you very hungry. Because of all this sweating and all the literal garbage, guys, he was eating. He was known to be a very stinky man.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's quoted as saying he stank to such a degree that he could not be endured within the distance of 20 paces.
Wow.
Which is even a pretty big deal considering 18th century hygiene standards.
Yeah.
They said that sometimes you could literally see the stink vapors come off of him.
Get out.
That's what it says. And of course, after eating, this would only get worse. He stank even worse after he had eaten due to digestion, I'm sure. His eyes and cheeks would become bloodshot. He would become lethargic. Same.
I mean, doesn't everybody when they eat a lot?
And he would, quote, belch, and his jaws would make swallowing motions.
What?
Yeah. And like I mentioned, like picturing a snake eating food like it's digesting and it goes through its body. That's what I picture. And aside from like his gross eating habits, people who knew him said that he didn't appear to have any mental illness. Like, this isn't psychological. Like, he seemed sane other than he was just kind of apathetic.
Huh.
So, which leads me to believe that, biological. Also, he had super chronic diarrhea, which was, quote, fetid beyond all conception.
Well, that's just lovely.
It said that he would eat and, like, immediately go dispel the contents of his body.
Gross.
Yeah. Now, around 1792, this is when the War of the First Coalition began. This is about the time, they go hang Marie Antoinette. This is the French Revolutionary Army.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Rations for the soldiers were tight. And, I mean, that's not good for Tarrare, who was in the military at the time. He would do things, like chores and stuff for the other soldiers so that he could be paid in their rations. They would give him their food. He would also scavenge for food in trash and dung heaps.
What?
Oh, do I need to repeat it?
Nope.
Okay. This still wasn't enough to satisfy him, and he eventually was admitted to a military hospital at Haute-Rhin. Sorry. Due to severe exhaustion, because he just wasn't eating enough for him.
Like I said, it's like his body doesn't have fat reserves
Yeah.
to feed energy off of, so he's got to just eat it. He's got to eat all
Yeah,
of it
just-
rather than having anything to use up when he's not eating.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't sound like he's getting the nutrients from it either, especially if it's
Garbage.
garbage and it's leaving his body quickly.
Right. The diarrhea tends to mean you're
Yeah.
not getting all those nutrients out.
So at the hospital, he was actually granted quadruple rations, but it still wasn't enough.
And he still wasn't any, like, morbidly obese person. He was
No,
still a
he was
tiny...
still super skinny. He took to scavenging for garbage in gutters and trash bins. He would eat leftover rations by other patients. He even snuck into the apothecary room to eat the poultices, which is like, it's like this oatmeal porridge-like mass that was made out of plants and herbs, and it would, it'd be put on your body. It's just a big mushy handful of plant, basically.
Gross.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's not as gross as some of the other things he ate.
Well, it's not gross considering what it was for, but it's gross that he ate it.
Yep.
And this still was not enough for him. Like, he's so hungry all the time. So this was a new thing for military staff surgeons. They decided to keep him around and kind of study him and figure out what's going on.
Well, yeah. People would probably do that today if this happened.
They first tested his capacity for food. They set out a meal big enough for 15 laborers, and they just let him eat it. The whole table.
Whoa.
He ate 2 large meat pies, some plates of grease and salt,
What?
4 gallons of meat.
How do you make meat into gallons?
I don't know.
I pictured, like, pureed meat now. That's disgusting.
No. And when he was done, he immediately went to sleep.
Well,
I mean, I guess maybe that was enough. At another time, they presented him with a live cat. And he tore the cat's stomach open with his teeth. He drank its blood. And then he ate the entire cat. Oh, except his bones, but... And then almost immediately vomited up its fur and skin.
what was that about no mental illness?
He seemed sane.
Because I feel like normal people don't eat live cats.
But maybe... I mean, I don't know the circumstances, but maybe they starved him a little bit.
But were they like, here's a live cat, you can eat it? Or did he just find a cat?
Well, I don't think they gave it. Well, they gave it to him, but I don't think it was like, here's a pet to keep you company. I think they wanted him to eat it.
Oh my. What?
After that, they started offering him like just a variety of animals. They gave him snakes, which remember, he loved, lizards, puppies, and he ate those, an entire eel, which he swallowed whole without chewing.
But why?
Maybe just to see if he could digest them.
But those poor animals.
Yeah. Surgeon-in-Chief Pierre-Francois Percy is quoted as saying, "The dogs and cats fled in terror at his aspect, as if they had anticipated the kind of fate he was preparing for them."
And you kept on giving him
And
animals.
you just kept giving them to him. Thanks a lot.
Oh, what's wrong with people?
So Tarrare went through countless experiments at the military hospital, but military authorities wanted him to be returned to active duty. I mean, they need soldiers.
Well, yeah.
But the staff wanted to just continue with these experiments. So they convinced General Alexandre de Beauharnais to let Tarrare use his ability to eat anything and everything to military use.
How is that useful to the military?
I am going to tell you.
Please do.
A document was put inside a wooden box, and then Tarrare ate it. And then 2 days later, he pooped it out.
Okay.
They retrieved the box, and they could still read the document. It was still legible.
How big was this box?
I don't know. That I don't know. But considering the way he ate, who knows how big it was.
Okay, I just want to say this, and this is very gross. If you don't want to hear this grossness, go ahead and skip forward about 15 seconds now. If his mouth and stomach were that large for him to be able to swallow things whole, he had to poop it out.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
So, like, it had...
Well, we have an autopsy at the end. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about how big his butthole was, I guess.
Oh, boy. So they decided, hey, he could be used as a military courier and he could carry documents without risk of being found if he ended up being searched, because nobody's gonna go up the poop hole.
Well, nope, they sure wouldn't.
So he was then brought to a gathering of commanders to kind of show, like, what he could do, what the idea was. Again, he swallowed the box successfully and was in turn rewarded with a wheelbarrow containing 30 pounds of raw bull's lungs and liver, which he was excited about and immediately ate it in front of these commanders.
Gross.
Yeah. But because of this demonstration, Tarrare was officially employed as a spy for the army of Ron.
I wonder if he still stunk during all this. I assume he did.
Sure he did. Oh, I'm sure he did. So his first assignment was to carry a message to a French colonel who had been imprisoned by the Prussians near Neustadt. Tarrare crossed the Prussian lines disguised as a German peasant, but because he couldn't speak German, the Prussians found him.
Well,
that tends to do it.
Feels like they didn't think that one through.
So after a strip search, they couldn't find anything suspicious on his person, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And he refused to talk, so he was beaten and imprisoned. And after 24 hours, Tarrare finally broke down and he told him everything.
Oh. Great spy. Well, he was probably starving. He's like, I'll tell you whatever you want if you just give me some food. Any food. Give me a puppy. I don't care. Snakes.
You see that small German child? I'll eat her. Just bring me something.
Are there rats in here?
Gross. So he told him everything, and then he was chained to a latrine for 30 hours, so that this box could pass, they could get it, read the message. Commander Zoegli, who was the guy over the Prussian authorities at the time who captured him, was very furious because when they finally received the message from his excrement, it turned out to just be a dummy message, like asking that French colonel to just let him know if he got it.
Oh.
It wasn't even a real message.
No top secret information here.
Nope, just a test.
Just a poop-covered letter.
Found the name of the episode. Again, this guy was like super mad. He sent Tarrare immediately to the gallows to be hanged. But it was said that Tarrare just sobbed and Zoegli kind of felt bad for him and then he released him. I'm not sure if that part's true or not, but either way, he was given a very severe beating and then just released and sent back to the French lines.
What?
So he just survived.
Oh my God.
And I'm sure he was very hungry.
I'm sure he was. And I'm going to remember that. If I'm ever captured by enemies, I'm going to just cry a lot. That won't be a problem. That's what I'm going to do anyway.
I was going to say, I'm going to do that anyway. Naturally, Tarrare was like done with the military. He didn't want any part of this anymore.
Well, yeah.
And he returned to the hospital to Dr. Percy. And I assume he went back to the hospital because at least they were feeding him.
Well, yeah.
So he begged him to help him cure his appetite. He said he would try anything if Percy could do this for him. Percy treated him with laudanum, which is just an opium tincture, wine vinegar, tobacco pills. He fed Tarrare with large quantities of soft-boiled eggs. I'm sure 12 at a time because they fit in his mouth.
Right.
But none of this helped. He tried to place Tarrare on numerous diets, but that doesn't help either. Tarrare still would sneak out of the hospital. He would scavenge for food. He would try to find, and I don't know if I'm saying this right because I've only ever read it, offal, which is just organ meat outside butcher shops. He would fight stray dogs for food.
Oh my God.
He would find trash in gutters, alleys, trash bins, just for something to eat. He was also caught several times in the hospital drinking patients' blood, like from their bloodlettings. Yeah, like blood that was already out, but still. And even attempting to eat the bodies in the morgue.
What?
Mm-hmm. Not long after, a 14-month-old child disappeared from the hospital.
Oh, no.
And, blame immediately shifted to Tarrare. He's eating dead people. Why not a child? Nobody ever figured out what happened. But Dr. Percy was either unable to defend him or didn't want to. Maybe he even thought he ate him.
Yeah.
And the staff ran Tarrare from the hospital, and he never returned there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't make words.
I told you it was a wild ride.
And I'm just trying not to picture someone eating a child because that's just heartbreaking and like terrible.
I know.
I don't want to say I hope it was kidnapped.
Well, I mean, that's maybe a fate better than being eaten.
Probably alive.
Possibly.
Although I feel like someone would hear this kid screaming if he was trying to.
I would think so,
Eat
but
it.
maybe.
Okay, let's not talk about that anymore.
Moving on. Just 4 years later, Dr. Percy was notified that a former patient of his wished to see him. It was Tarrare, and he was at the Versailles Hospital. He was bedridden, and he was like really weak. He couldn't get up. He was very sick. He told Percy that 2 years before that, he had swallowed a golden fork, and he believed that it had been lodged inside of him and was essentially what was causing his sickness.
Why did he eat a fork?
He probably didn't even know. He was probably just eating and the fork went down with it.
Oh my God.
However, Percy realized that it wasn't the case. He had actually been in like end-stage tuberculosis.
Oh.
Yeah. Just a month later, Tarrare had begun to experience exudative diarrhea and then died shortly afterwards. I mean, basically...
More diarrhea than normal.
More diarrhea than normal, yeah. Tarrare's corpse began to rot rapidly, so most of the doctors just refused to dissect it. But his acting physician, Dr. Tessier, actually raced against the clock to try to dissect his body and like see what was going on inside his body that made him different. And he also wanted to see if the fork was still in his body.
Well, yeah,
I
I
mean,
would too.
Yeah. What they had found was that when Tarrare's mouth was open, you could see directly through his esophagus to his stomach.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Which is how everything would fit, by the way. His body was filled with pus, probably due to all the garbage he ate.
Yep.
His liver and his gallbladder were abnormally large,
Yep.
probably because of the literal garbage he ate. And his stomach was enormous and covered in ulcers.
Again.
Probably because of the garbage he ate. The fork, however, was never found.
Oh, well, he probably pooped it out.
He probably did, if he ate it at all. But eventually they had to stop. The stench from his rotting body and just probably his body in general became so unbearable that even, like Percy, who was helping, had to just stop. Again, as we don't know his actual birth date, it was estimated that Tarrare had died at around 26 years old.
Wow, I assumed he would be much older than that.
Mm-hmm. So, what could he have been suffering from that would cause this? This is the 18th century. I'm going to say that they don't have the knowledge and technology that we have now.
Well, yeah.
So we don't really have a lot to go on. Let's think about it. We were still bloodletting patients,
Yep.
We were in the time of just do cocaine about it because you have ghosts in your blood.
Yep. Women were just suffering from hysterics.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. But some theories suggest hyperactive hormones, which, I can see, an enlarged hypothalamus in the brain, which would mean that the sensor that tells us that we're full was actually damaged in Tarrare, and it caused him just to continue to eat and feel hunger. It also regulates body temperature, so that could be the reason why he was so hot and sweaty all the time, too. There's also the idea that it could have been pica. Think about, what's that TV show where people eat weird stuff?
My Strange Addiction.
Yeah. Or it could have possibly been some kind of parasite that was keeping him from feeling full. But
Could have been a tapeworm.
But for 26 years?
Yep.
I was going to say, I don't know how that works. So.
I don't know if you can have a tapeworm for 26
Me
years.
either. But,
I just watched, literally 2 days ago, I just watched, a little short documentary about a little girl who had some kind of gene disorder that kept her from feeling full. She always felt like she was starving.
Yeah.
So she was 5 years old and she was, morbidly obese because she was stealing food. She was just pitching fits. And the doctor, when they diagnosed her, the doctor explained to her mom that, Imagine how you would feel after not eating for 3 days.
Yeah.
She feels like that all the time.
Oh,
But
she's so small.
But this little girl was, gaining weight.
That's what I was getting ready to say, though. Like, this is different. I wonder if... I'm sure metabolism had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, he wasn't gaining weight from it. He was just hungry.
I wonder if maybe, like, his intestines didn't work well and he couldn't absorb nutrients.
It's
as
possible.
much.
Well, that's what I wondered, too, because of the diarrhea. I mean...
Right, yeah.
The nutrients aren't going in. He's always hungry. So it's just going in, going out. It's just enough to keep him alive. And, I mean, tuberculosis was common back then, but I wonder if he was more susceptible to sickness.
Because he couldn't get the nutrients to
Right.
fight it off. That's crazy.
I don't know.
That is crazy.
And, like, there were some times where it's just like, he ate so much and he was still hungry. And I'm like, yeah, me too. But then it was like, no, I don't eat cats. Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm never that hungry.
I'm never going to be hungry enough to eat a live animal. Never. Not once.
No, I don't think so.
I might like kill it first, but not going to eat it live.
Yeah, I'm not going to eat a lot.
Definitely going to cook it too.
Yeah.
Like, not going to.
I won't eat a 14-month-old.
Definitely won't do that.
That's where I draw the line.
Not going to eat a fork or garbage.
No.
Not going to dig through piles of poop for undigested food.
Yeah.
On that note,
Yeah.
hope you guys have enjoyed this terribly gross story.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening.
Like us on Facebook at True Crimes and Weird Times Podcast.
Follow us on Instagram at True Crimes Weird Times.
Email us your stories at truecrimesweirdtimes@gmail.com.
And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review.
Bye.